Any modifications, amendments, changes to the November 4 meeting?
Just one, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Occasionally John Burt is Jay Burl in the
Yep.
minutes. So.
I see that. Can you tell me I see it on page 2.
And 3. It's a funny one.
I think he liked the Burl because
Milton Burl.
Yeah.
it's just, okay, does
It shows up, I can tell you, I've got it up in PDF if you want the page numbers.
oh, I got it
Or
here,
you can
3.
just Find and replace,
You
maybe.
do right, so anywhere it says Burl, change it to Burt, and we're good to go?
Yep.
Okay?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Burt?
I have been called worse, so I will accept Mr. Burl.
Okay, but we can go with Mr. Burt, and that would be okay?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Further? Seeing none, those in favor of the minutes signify by raising your hand, please. And Mr. Fletcher,
I wasn't here.
how are you gonna vote?
No, I'm staying. I
Abstain?
wasn't here.
Okay, no, that's okay. It's not a no, it's an abstained. So that's 10-0-1, Mr. Fletcher, not here. And actually, there's a real easy way, because up on the top, that's the one thing you look at where it says present, excused, and absent. It's nice to take a peek to see if your name is part of the people talking, but you weren't included as being present. Sometimes it's handy to look at that to make sure those are correct. November 9th, we were talking to the administration
Motion approved?
and Public Works. Guy makes a motion to approve or bring it to the floor anyway, second.
I'll second it.
That is Mr. Burt.
You can ask Dan.
Changes?
Was I there, Dan? I don't remember that one,
Which one?
the one you're voting on now.
Okay. So you have no changes? But you watched it on GTV.
I did.
Oh,
Okay.
gosh.
This is November 9th, right?
This is November 9.
Town, bring it.
No more changes?
Well,
Yeah.
I'm Dillian on this one and many others. So instead of Dylan, it's Dillian. Maybe another find and replace to fix those.
Depends what you said, you might wanna just let it go.
Is it one L
Can't
or two
Google
L's?
it that way.
L-L-O-N.
Oh, Dylan.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute, that's what it is?
The correct is
No.
O-N, but
No,
it's
I'm-
incorrect on here.
I wanna know how it's actually spelled.
D-I-L-L-O-N.
No, it's spelled D-I-L-L-I-O-N.
That's-
I'm looking for the search.
You should know how to spell his
Not
own
the
name, Dan.
replace. We got the replace, not the search.
Fine.
So we're looking change Dillian to Dylan. Right.
Yep.
It's okay, we can handle that. Anything else?
Yeah, one.
Yeah, okay.
Paul, do you have these minutes up?
Page?
I read
Page
them all,
4.
I don't have this particular one up.
Page 4, under technology, third, I guess, paragraph. There's mention here that I figured the cost is $2,000 per computer. I thought you had said that.
You had actually, at a meeting
the math?
prior. Yeah, and apparently you forgot in the intervening period.
Apparently I have.
Okay, it is as written.
No, I just mean, because I mentioned it at a later meeting.
Subsequent meeting? Okay.
Yeah, and at that point you said you didn't know.
Thanks for refreshing my memory. Why we have these young guys on the committee.
Defaultically challenged individuals are quite, I can say that. Do you have something, Scott?
No, I haven't, fine,
Any further changes?
go in there.
Man, the mood is quite different than about a month ago.
Yeah.
More relaxed. Okay, all those in favor of the minutes as amended, signify by raising your hand. Okay, and
Who was that for?
this is November 9th.
You were here.
I was here, yeah. I'll
You're good for it,
I
okay.
read them, yeah.
That's 11-0-0. That's unanimous.
He committed them to memory.
So let's now turn to November 13th, which was I believe it was the Saturday, our Saturday meeting.
How many times did we meet?
Too many.
We met, well, we haven't met quite 22 times, but I believe it'll be 22 times after this meeting, and I believe this is the last meeting.
Do we get overtime for this meeting?
You
That's
get-
prob-
Yes,
that's
you
probably
do.
why
You
we
get
didn't know
time
what
and a
we were
half
doing.
from our normal pay.
Okay.
Is that why we didn't know what we were doing?
We-
Because we met too much?
We always knew what we were doing, Dick. Do I have someone to motion this to the floor, please, to accept? That'd be Christie, and I'm gonna have a second by Bill Gordon. And, Taking a peek at it, any changes? Seeing none, let's vote on these. Those in favor as presented, please signify with a hand raised. Thank you. That's 1100. Let's move on to the 16th of November, which would be the following Tuesday, I believe.
Yep.
And this was discussion on school stuff. Do I have someone to motion on these minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Mr. John Burt, and I believe that was Dick who seconded.
Yep.
Do we have any changes? Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote on them. Those in favor, signify by raising your hand. Excellent, that's 1100. Let us get to the November 30th. This would be the first meeting after Thanksgiving. It's a 4-pager. Do we have someone to make a motion to accept the minutes? That's Mr. Bill Gordon. Do I have a second? I saw Mr. Ivan's hand. Do we have any modifications? We're ready to go for that hand, Bill. All right, approve them as written. Do we have a vote? Everybody in favor? 1100. And 8-page report for December 2. Cool weekly ones. Do we have a motion to bring this, to accept it? That would be Mr. Guy. Do I have a second?
I'll second
Mr. Burt? Do we have some changes to this one? Any suggestions? Okay, all in favor, signify by raising your hand. Be unanimous. Thank you. Let's get to December 7th.
I move.
Okay, that would be Paul and Christie. See, this way, when your names get on there, you know you're here, and we can check that present. Any potential changes to this one? Okay.
I found that statement, though.
Is that the follow-up one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Page 3.
We gotta see that, look at that.
No, I'm not proposing a change, just. letting you
No,
know.
I'm just thinking it was cool, yes, I didn't realize the per cost unit is hovering around 2,000. It didn't say
Well,
here.
I've actually received, and I don't know if we wanna get into this now, but.
Probably not.
Probably not.
No, we could do
talk
that right
later.
after.
Yeah.
Those in favor of the minutes as presented, signify by raising your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you. All right, December 14th.
I'll move again.
Paul's moving, and Chris, she was just a half a second quicker than you, Ivan, sorry. Paul and Christie, seconds. Changes? Those in favor as presented, raise your hand, please. That's 10. Guy, how do you
I'll
vote?
abstain. I was there for the last 15 minutes, so.
Okay. Let's look at December 15th. Do I have a motion to bring it to the floor?
Sure.
Do I have a second? Yes. Ivan's got that one. Any modifications, changes? Those in favor? Please signify. I see all hands, that's a, no, do I see your hand? Yeah, 1100, thank you. Okay, December 21, this is your regular meeting, last meeting in December.
I'll move that.
Mr. Burt moves that one,
I'll second.
and Guy seconds. Any changes? Okay, meeting after that was the, budget. All those in favor of the December 21, signify by raising your hand, please. Thank you. 1100, that's unanimous. All right, then the next one is the public hearing. All right, that's January 13th. Who wants to bring that one? Christie? And I got Bill Gordon. All right,
I know which side I'm on.
any modifications? Who wants to start?
I got one. 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
4 page, I think it's.
They weren't numbered on this one. Bummer.
So it's there's Leo, a name Leo Welko is actually Leah.
Right.
I noticed she's maybe
Remember
got
what-
it corrected already.
I don't think so, but which page?
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, it's,
Page.
10.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
The last name is misspelled too.
Well,
And the correction, in addition to the name, is, and the kids won't have a movie day that day.
that's Leah.
Yeah, and
That's Leah,
Yeah, and how do you spell her
It's
last name?
WOLCZKO. First name is Leah.
Yep, got that, and,
So, second from last sentence in her paragraph, and the kids, you need to insert won't have a movie day. Her point is, if the teachers are gonna be there, then the kids won't have a movie day.
That's right.
the kids won't. Okay, so it'll say, let's all work together and the teachers decide they will get their hours in the summer and the kids won't have a movie day?
Yeah,
Okay.
The spelling of last name is W-O, right? Is that what it is?
WOLCZKO.
Yep.
Further on the public hearing minutes? Second to the last page, Scott?
you know, I had one thing highlighted, yeah, second to the last page, I think it's a factual error, referring to, it's by, you know, it's attributed to Jill Kelvo. It says referring to Glen Lake Kindergarten principal, saying the principal makes $90,000 a year. I just don't think that's accurate, I think it's,
You can't change that.
can't change it, okay.
No, the
okay.
thing is, what is accurate is whether she said it or not.
Oh, I think she said that, yeah.
Then
Yeah,
that's
that's all
the
matters.
accurate part.
Okay. That's fine.
Anybody else? Okay, all those in favor of the minutes as amended, raise your hand, please. That looks unanimous, 1100. Now we go to our 16-pager, which is January 20.
Some of that.
Paul? Do I have a second? Christie? It's almost like a silent auction, we got little paddles. All right, changes, modifications? Looking good? Those in favor as presented, signify by raising your hand. And how would Mr.
Aye.
Guy?
I'll abstain, I wasn't there.
10-0-1.
Although I watched it till midnight.
Well, then you can vote if you want to, if you
Then
believe it's
I'll-
accurate.
I actually do think it's accurate, so
Okay.
I'll vote in the affirmative.
11-0-0.
When was that?
How'd you like that, Scott? Wasn't that cool?
Oh,
I called you the night.
You weren't paying attention, so you missed it.
I watched the
Permitted him
meeting,
to
but I
vote.
voted to approve them anyway.
There you go, okay. Precedent's been set then.
All right, now we have two more. We have February 5, which are the minutes after the school deliberative session, where we
We did what we did.
made a motion to not recommend and which was passed, 10.1, and that's what's gonna show on the ballot. Do I have a motion on that one?
Yeah, bring those forward.
Guy, anybody else? I saw Paul. My line of sight better as I turn my head. Any changes? Favor of approving as submitted?
Indeed.
Show of hands, please. And Christie?
I'm abstaining, there was no video to watch on that one.
Okay, and you?
I'm joining,
Okay,
abstaining.
so that would be 902.
I don't think there was, I never saw
No.
any video of that period.
No, not of that.
Christie
Yeah, the deliberative
and
session.
John D.
Was that the
I
school?
don't think it's been
You
on
tried
yet.
to? Really?
All right, we have the post-town deliberative session on February 7th. Do I have someone to action that? Christie and Paul. And I was actually looking over at you.
You had your chance. I did.
Why he raised his hands.
It didn't move. All right, any changes, modifying? Looks good, everybody's happy? Those in favor of it as presented, signify by raising your hand, please. And Mr. Dillon,
Abstain?
you weren't there? Okay. Whew, we got through it. Excuse me while I scratch my eye.
Not
Take
the
a break?
toughest thing we've ever done. Yeah, I know. Take a
It's
break.
pretty tiring. I take a recess.
Okay, I am going to probably jump off the agenda just slightly. I wanna let everybody know this is the last meeting for Christie Garrison. She served for, how many years?
About 3.5.
3.5. And, thank you very much.
Thank
Bill
you.
Harder's not here, his term is ending. John Heichel, your term has ended, has it been 3 or 6 years?
6 years.
6 years.
Wow.
Thank you. And Kathy, who, if we actually are here long enough, might be here, but otherwise than that, she has other engagement. And Paul, who came on board with an appointment in June. This is the end of that term, and he will be attempting another one. I'm trying not to make this political while everybody, I'm just trying to get facts out.
It's never
Okay.
political, Dan.
Yeah. So, administrative analysis.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes, yes.
If I'm not mistaken, are they still on the budget committee until their replacement has been sworn in? So Christie may have to come back if a replacement doesn't get
No,
sworn in?
actually, the way I
Or is it-
believe
or is
it
it-
is,
was
it's,
just an opening?
there's a term in the law that says,
She can answer that.
whether or not their replacement actually gets sworn, as of the Friday at the end of the recount
That's it?
period, it's it.
Right.
It's, in order to stay on the committee, there has to be a specificity in the law that would say members would remain until the
There isn't?
replacements, and there is
Sorry
not
about
for
that.
budget.
I tried for you.
Thanks. Could all write my name in.
Can I make a statement as a,
I'm going to.
in public comment as a private citizen?
I'm gonna get there.
Okay.
Okay, let's do it. Public
it
comment.
time?
Anybody wanna make a public,
Yeah, I
there's,
just wanna
I
make
have
a.
two things going on. One's a public comment, and then we're gonna go on old business, unfinished business on the budget process, or thoughts on the budget process, that kind of thing. Does it fit in that piece, or something different?
No, I just,
It's
as a,
not political, is it?
no.
Okay,
no.
cool, go.
No, as, no, it's not, believe
Well,
me.
the thing is, there's an election coming up.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
people are
no,
running
no,
for
no, I
office,
just
and
wanna, I wanna say, as a resident and, a taxpayer, having nothing to do with being on this board, I wanna thank you and Kathy and Bill and Paul for the efforts that you guys put in. Watching you guys, especially Christie, because she's been here for a while, Kathy and John and Bill, is part of the reason why I decided to run for this committee. And thank you for all your efforts. That's all I wanted to say.
Amen, that's so perfect, thank you.
Our pleasure.
That's
My
where
pleasure.
we're all headed. Anybody else want to, No, that is serious. It's, you know, it's not easy being in these positions. It was quite difficult in January. And there are ups and downs, and it's lots of fun. But you have to really love, when, did I hear when? Tonight.
It's coming.
This summer.
That's right, it's coming.
It's a great
That's right,
learning,
this summer.
great learning experience that
It is.
nobody that doesn't sit on this and go through it has any, I mean, really has the idea of where their tax money is really going and how
Yeah.
things are paid and.
And the tough part is that no matter what you do, half the people are gonna be happy and half are not.
Correct. And that's,
And you just do what You do what you,
I've been saying that for years.
yeah.
That's right, right.
You do the best you can, you follow your heart, you follow your head, and you guys did that. And, you know, and I didn't necessarily agree with everyone on this committee at different times. Even before I was on this committee, I would watch but it's, the effort you guys did and the way you approached it is what prompted me to run. So anyways, thanks for your dedication to the taxpayers and the residents here. Okay, I'm done. I thought I already went through this.
Well, you can
Next.
do it again.
All right, well, I just did.
You're not gonna cry like Bateman, are you?
I'm done.
Anybody else? Like,
that is, huh?
Christie?
I wanna say thank you to Dan and everyone else, but I'd like to thank Dan for his leadership, your patience, your guidance, your professionalism. I enjoyed my 3.5 years. I learned a lot. When my life is a little less busy, I'd like to maybe try to get back on the budget committee.
Cool.
And I just want to say thank you to everyone. I not only learned a lot, I respected every single person that was willing to show up here a couple times a week or once a week or whenever, the 22 times we met this year. I respected you even if I didn't always agree with you, and I think you know, it was a good learning experience. And people should try to volunteer if they can, if they have the opportunity.
And we have, without naming names, we have 4 positions open for 3 years. 7 names are on the ballot. And there is 1 position open for 1 year.
1 year.
And is there just
Unopposed.
one person?
One person.
It's unopposed, so there's one position, so.
Could be right in.
It's, correct, it's currently only 1 name pre-printed on the ballot. If you wanted to look at some history and go back a number of years, there would be 4 positions available and 2 names on a ballot. There were years, I remember, where we actually, the committee filled, I think, 3 positions.
I was appointed
And you were appointed that
first time.
year, right, 3.5, so 4 terms ago.
Right.
And it worked, so it's good. I'm glad there's a lot of interest or more interest. And come on, and, you know, we'll go. There's never, I mean, the learning curve is there, but hopefully people get to ask questions even if they think it doesn't make any sense, because how else are you gonna learn? And that's one of the things, you know, so hopefully some of us who have been around a little while would just be patient, because sometimes we hear the questions every single year, and that's okay. It brings us all back.
Me, I must ask a question.
Anybody else? Let's segue to the, it's a piece of old business, thoughts on the 2010 budget process, questions, things that went on. Paul?
I have a piece of, it's very old business. It might not be very brief, so I don't know if anyone has anything very brief to go first, but,
That's okay, I get to make that call, go.
okay. Well, I think some of you might recall back in fall, on a couple of occasions, I asked during the school board presentation and subsequently about the average teacher's salary figure. And I was trying to reconcile it with some numbers that I was getting from the salary spreadsheet that we were provided. And I was told at the time that discrepancies that I might find would be due to a formula that the DOE applies to the numbers they get. Similar to what they do with the cost per pupil analysis, which I believe they remove like transportation and things like that. And you know, that was enough for me at the time, so I let that go. But a couple weeks ago, the topic came up again when I became involved in an email correspondence with a resident on the topic of teacher salary. And let's see. One of the outcomes of that correspondence was that I decided to give the DOE a call to figure out what the formula was, because I was always kind of curious about what it was. And they referred me to the Bureau of Data Management. And they told me that there is no formula and that they just publish the figures that they receive unaltered. So I figured if we were mistaken about that, maybe we were mistaken about the number too. So I started looking into it a bit more, and what do I have?
Who do they receive the number from, Paul?
From the district.
Okay.
So,
And I believe on some some paperwork I've probably seen, it was Stacy who signs them, it's I think it's pre-printed, the superintendent of schools.
Yeah, I actually got a copy of the forms, it's the A12F form is what it's called. I can send links to people if you're interested, but it is the superintendent that signs, but the most recent, the one that I was concerned with, didn't have a signature because it was a prior one that was on file or something. At any rate, so I obtained the copy of the salary spreadsheet that corresponded to the most recent year on file with the DOE, which was 2009-2010 school year. And I applied the stipulations, the criteria that are on the instructions for the intake form, which are to include longevity and to exclude, let's see, the following categories: any part-time personnel, art and music, Title I, ESL, English as a second language, and librarians, and of course administrators. So after excluding that and including longevity, I arrived at a figure of 48,280, which is roughly 3,000 more than the 45,608 that was reported. And you'd need to exclude the top 36 rows of the spreadsheet in order to arrive at that 45 figure. And I need to say at this point, to make it clear, if anyone is taking minutes after the fact especially, that this is not an accusation, and I don't, there could be any number of reasons for this apparent discrepancy. I just want to see it resolved, and of course, one of the resolutions could be that I'm wrong about something, and I'd like to find that out.
What did you use for your source documentation to get to the 48?
I used
The spreadsheet?
the salary spreadsheet, which is the one from 2009, 2010, which is the same as, the spreadsheet that was provided this year.
Okay,
So it included, actually, that spreadsheet included more data than the current year's spreadsheet. It had title and, what do you call that? FTE equivalency
Okay.
columns. So that was what enabled me to apply the criteria.
Find out whether they were
That extra
part-time or not.
data, right, yes. So, I actually have, if anyone wants to look, I do have handouts.
Sure.
Yeah.
While he's handing it out, did you want to take a question now? Scott had something.
No, I was just gonna say, you might just wanna make an appointment with Ray Labor.
Yeah.
And just,
I know they'd be open and
he'd
willing.
be
welcome.
totally open to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I mean, the only reason I bring this up now, it's kind of unfortunate we don't have school board representation tonight, but
You may not
as
be
this
here
may
next
be my
meeting.
last meeting, I figure I might as well just toss this out there if
May not
anyone
be
wants
here
to.
to do it.
And these out this direction, and these can go
Oh,
this way.
this is all the whole thing?
No, just
What is this?
Is there two?
just
One?
pass it around. Just take one.
Oh, so it looks like there's different,
The spreadsheet is going the other direction. Are those not the same?
oh, this is,
Oh, I have my agenda in
I'm
there.
sorry, that's it. You didn't get one then.
No, I thought it was several things. Sorry.
Paul, if I remember right, the figure that was used in school presentations also was I believe an 07 or an 08 salary figure. That's just a rough recollection.
It was-
It seemed to me not to be, maybe I'm misremembering, but if that's true, I would just also ask,
Thanks.
why wouldn't have they used in their own presentation to us an 09, 010 number? But again,
I think it was the 09,
Oh, you think so?
2010, yeah, that was the figure, 45,608.
Oh, okay.
At least I don't recall seeing another one from a previous year.
45,680 is what this says.
Yeah, that's 608.
Oh, sorry. So, like I said, I just would be interested in seeing this resolved.
Okay. And you have 48,280, because I see that on page 4.
Right.
Okay.
And that was just the best of my ability to apply the criteria
Right.
on the intake
The
form.
reason I asked, this was the data used in the preparation of the 9-10 budget or preparation of the 10-11 budget?
Preparation for the 9-10, I believe.
Which means that was their estimate of what they would pay for salaries for 9-10.
Right.
And this is what they, as of October of '09, which would have been like 6, 7 months later, of what the average salary was as of that October date.
Right, it's
Okay.
submitted in the fall for that same
For that same year,
for the
but it was
current
actually,
year.
for the 9/10, this was actually submitted on October 15th, 2009. Actually, it looked like it was, that's when it was due. This looks like it was revised on 10/21. Okay.
And actually, I'm looking at the November 13th PowerPoint average teacher salaries that they presented to us. It was '09, '10 school year figures,
Right.
and 45,680 is what they quoted. So.
Which would be this spreadsheet. So at that point, it would be good to be able to tie these two together.
Right.
Let me see what I can do.
Assuming that those are
Yeah,
supposed to
and you have this
correspond.
electronic, you can share with
I
me.
do, I can send an email.
And what I'll do is I can, you can reach out to Ray, or I can send him the data and say, this is what we found, can you tell us what we have that may not be correct?
Right.
Okay. Anybody, Christie?
While we're on the school, I don't know if maybe I missed the meeting, but did we ever get a total cost of the IPO phones that were installed? I think we asked for it, and you asked for including the labor costs, and we never did get a answer.
I don't think we did.
And I won't be here
Was it
again.
asked during the meeting? Because I don't have a list of any unanswered questions.
Was that the meeting at the police
Um,
station?
No,
Oh, that was a long time
No.
ago. That was back in
Middle of summer.
before, yeah,
we
June
got
or
the,
May or.
the actual hardware cost.
Right, it was
Then
like,
you specifically asked about, did it include installation
Right.
costs?
I think we did
think
get
they
an
did.
answer. It was an
somewhat.
answer
I
during a
think we
minute.
got it.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but I do believe we
Or
got an
maybe
answer.
you could send that to me.
It's in the minutes someplace. It
Okay.
wasn't sent to me in an email. I believe it was answered in the room by a representative who was here.
Maybe, I don't think so. but-
Okay.
Thought a sheet was passed out on it.
yeah, but if I recall, I think we remember asking, okay, they don't install themselves, who's installing them? There's no installation cost because our people are doing it. Well,
Well,
what do they cost us? And I don't think I ever got that breakdown, but maybe it did. If not, I'm curious to know.
okay, we can look at, I almost believe, I think I remember something.
Okay.
And if that isn't exact, Mr. Burt.
Well, I had the, as I call it, the unfortunate situation. I had to call the high school the other day, and I would recommend everybody attempt to call the high school and to see where this $300,000+ phone system, I believe it cost, how it works. Took me 4 tries to get through. It's a disaster. So, just call the high school and enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
there a specific location you were trying to get to, or?
Uh,
I just don't wanna, because it might
Well,
be
no,
hitting the wrong number,
I-
or not getting the instructions,
Well,
or
you have to know the, I think
the
the first
telephone number?
attempt that I made, they said you have to know the party.
Okay,
Okay, that didn't work out well because I've never called the high school, so how do I know what party to call?
okay.
You know, which extension, and then
Yeah.
when I attempted again, I pressed some buttons, that didn't work, so it hung up on me. I attempted again, and,
Was 0 any of the buttons?
well, that's what I ended up pressing was the 0,
Yeah,
you know, because they give you some options.
oh, they do, okay.
Yeah, so then when I pressed the 0, that didn't work very well the first time. Then I went and I listened, and you have to wait until the whole message plays,
Before
then
yeah.
press 0.
That's,
And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
for $300,000, I should be able to press 0 at any time, but apparently
it
not.
might be a programming thing, so.
Well, one
any
thing,
hints?
one thing I do have to praise,
Yeah,
I do.
it's in English.
And it doesn't give you the option for 3 other
No,
languages?
I had to call Comcast tonight, and I got several languages, which, disturbs me. But, so I do have to take my hat off. I thank them for at least having it in English. But I think people should call it just to see where their money's going. I think they will get a chuckle out of it.
that is programming. I'm not sure that is part of VoIP or not VoIP. I mean, you could have that in any machine.
Well, the secretary I talked to, I did say, have you ever called yourself here? And she goes, no, I'm usually at work. So, she did have a good answer.
I was about to say something like that. No, I'm never there. Come on,
Yeah.
it's only here. All right.
Yeah, no, she was very pleasant. Answered my question.
Okay. The question wasn't, how do you like your new phone system, is it?
Well, that was part of it at the beginning.
Anybody else have something they wanna talk about? Anything about the budget process, any thoughts, any, for those of you whose terms are expiring, any, words of wisdom other than that, Christie?
I'm sure you don't want to hear it. I still think you guys should meet over the summer, and you should.
Good for you.
I requested to last summer. I think, you know, you could take the previous year's budgets and go over lines that are overspent, underspent, just have a little idea of the previous year's budget and how it works before you go into the next year's budget.
Okay.
Just my thoughts.
Parting shot. Well, I think you should meet twice a month.
Christie, can we have these summer meetings around your pool?
Okay, there you go. My in-ground pool, don't forget.
Maybe if we met twice a month, we might get a different reaction that we'd know what we were doing.
I'm not so sure.
I think it would be I think it would be pretty close to the same result. Everything worked out, you know, we all, I guess if there's anything to say that about some of these discussions get heated sometimes because there's so many, there's definitely 2 or 3 different sides here, and people have, but I am glad that through it all, we left those feelings at the meeting. And this is how I perceive this process that we went through. Sometimes there was some pretty rough things said, and I think that's just part of a good, healthy meeting and a good, healthy democracy. But I think for the most part, we all left those feelings right here at the meeting when we left, and everything was good. We're neighbors and in the same community, and I hope that's where we all leave these.
No, go ahead, Dick.
That's okay.
I was on a budget committee way back in the 70s for 3 years. And I came on in 97, and I've been here ever since. And the budget committee, in the past that I've ever been involved with, you know, they have their differences and things go on. But I never heard such reaction from people when they talk about getting along with your fellow citizens and doing a job for the town of Goffstown and for the betterment of everybody, and to stand up there and say that people don't know what they're doing and damn us, you know, I say to myself, what am I wasting my time for? I really do. I never in my life heard such reaction. Now, somebody instigated that whole mess to me. They said that we didn't take any time. They said we didn't do anything. And that's not true. We did. Whether they, you know, they weren't sitting here, and they weren't looking at me sitting on my computer looking at things with the school budget. They don't know that, you know. So I say to myself, why should I volunteer my time anymore from the waterworks? But I'm gonna do it because I don't think anybody up there wants to do it anyways, you know? But it just doesn't set right with me. I think it's terrible, what them people said at that public hearing. I really do.
I've got Bill, and then John, and I'll come around to Scott. Lord?
Yes. I would like to say that working with the Board of Selectmen and the town department heads has not changed during my 4 years on the Budget Committee. You know, however, the Budget Committee has gotten, during my tenure anyway, more perhaps demanding, more gutsy in the questions they're asking. They've been pushing back on governing boards and their actions. I know that a great deal of us spend an awful lot of time doing our homework. I want to guess that for every hour I sit in a budget meeting, I spend probably 2 to 2.5 hours, just about the same thing as like a college course or something, at home, working what I have to do on this budget. What I'm driving at is, on the town side, it's been a joy to work with them. Now, we are exactly the same board. We are as challenging and demanding. On the school side, it bothers me that the comments that came out, like at the candidates' night, were all painting the budget committee as uncaring, uninformed. I think there was a couple other words too, and that troubles me deeply. And I'll be back here next year on this budget committee, and I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing because I'm doing it for the taxpayers. Thanks.
Thank you, Bill. Excuse me for the scratchy throat. I've got a list. I've got John, and then I believe Scott and Ivan. John?
Well, I think the First Amendment kind of says, part of this is, in freedom of speech, that, that certainly doesn't come without pain or any type of, insults, but, thank God that we all do have the right to be heard, no matter how much it hurts or we agree or disagree with it. What we heard at the, school deliberative session, however, troubling it may appear, there are many places where that wouldn't be permitted. And I gotta tell you that no matter, and the viscero and the venom that was coming out of those microphones that night actually meant that I think we were doing the right thing. And I think that we stood by, we were obviously hitting a nerve that has not been pushed before. And I think that whenever you can get the opposition to come unglued 30 to 40 times or so within a few hours, I think that means that we were really doing our job. And and they haven't really seen that before, because in the previous years that I sat on this board, we agreed, and I remember the first year or two, I didn't really know. I mean, I was new to this. So we definitely had it together, and having them get upset with you, I think, is doing your job, and thank God there are people that are willing to sit for hours and listen to, and take that abuse, and still come back without being vindictive and slashing a budget, let's say, in half to eliminate that sort of situation. So I think we did our job, we were effective, and they knew that we were nipping at their heels, and they had, I think they knew that they needed to organize. So kudos to all of this budget committee for dealing with that, sitting through it, and coming up, and still coming up with a responsible budget.
Agree. Scott, and then Ivan.
I've been on both sides of it, you know, I mean, I've been on, and I've seen people come, you know, unglued or upset because their taxes are too high, or they felt that the school board did something wrong, or the Board of Selectmen. So I think it's what John said, it's part of the territory to a degree. And, you know, you said something at candidates night the night that I thought was like really insightful, and it was the amount of people that were there, the number of people that are running this year, that's a good thing. you know? It's a good thing that people are getting more engaged, not just sitting on their duff complaining. So that, and I'll leave you with this, is that, you know, most of you have known me, some a little bit, some a lot longer, and I consider myself somebody in the middle. And that, as Guy said, you know, half the people you like you and half the people hate you or whatever. I think that one of the problems is the pendulum swinging too far in certain directions. I've always been a person to kind of strive for that happy medium. And, you know, some may contend that that is unprincipled or too compromising, et cetera. But at the end of the day, you know, it's a moderating effect, because you have one, you know, in this particular case, in my opinion, the Budget Committee, this committee early on, took some pretty extreme positions. We've never heard before, you know, what would a 10% cut, you know, look like? So in that case, yeah, it was kind of a lot different, you know. And then on the other side, it was this, and you know, I think we ended up, you know, kind of somewhere in the middle. I felt kind of okay with it, but I think it's if you're here on this side of the pendulum, you might not like it a lot, and if you're here, you hate it. And then when you're here, and I don't know who said it one time, it's like sometimes the best decision is the one that maybe both people kind of don't really like, and that's just part of the whole going back and forth, you know. And but when you do end up kind of at that compromise or at that middle, there are people who are on those extremes who hate it. But that's kind of the beauty, I think, of the country, is that I think that's where you kind of, sometimes that's where it gets, you know. So, I don't know, the process isn't, I don't know, Dan, we've been doing this for so long, it's ugly sometimes, you know, and, you know, I'll leave you with this.
Never uglier than it was this year.
What?
Never uglier than it was.
I don't know, I mean,
Public hearing. This public hearing was ugly. It was the ugliest in 8 years that I've sat on this board.
But where was it coming from?
But that's what public hearings for.
That's what they're for,
Is to hear the public, even if you don't like it.
Oh, yeah.
You still be courteous and you still listen.
That's what I said about respect.
It
I
was-
respect all of you on here,
Right.
and I think you can disagree, but you can still be respectful. And I hope maybe the new members will, you know, go along with that.
I will just say that, I've just, in 10 years, I think that there needs to be more cooperation and more, you know, there needs to be more of that. And I think this is gonna have to be, I think it's gonna be something where everybody's have to work at, you know, it just doesn't come. And in some respects, it has to be maybe a burying of the hatchet to a degree, saying, let's start, you know, as best we can, as fresh as we can, and, you know, learn from, you know, mistakes and things of that nature. But, I don't know. I'm getting the sense that maybe, you know, the community wants people to more, you know, to come together, and I don't know.
Ivan?
I just wanted to say that I share some of the disappointment at the deliberative session and what transpired there, and the fact that that was represented as being, this is Goffstown turning out. This is representative of Goffstown, and I would have a different opinion than that totally, because I had gone to, for whatever reason, several school board meetings in a row, and I sat there, and a lot of things happened over those several meetings, and on January 3rd, in reaction to it,
Are you referring to the deliberative session or the public hearing?
Deliberative session.
I'm referring to the deliberative
Okay.
session.
All right.
The school board deliberative session.
On that Saturday morning?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I had a preview of that at the school board meeting, is what I'm saying, on January 3rd. I heard that. Because it was crystal clear, for instance, the superintendent had shared the opinion that, and there's a long list of 36 positions that would be cut. We've seen this. I heard that. It was a long dissertation. 2 world languages, the loss of the library, smart boards, 50% reduction in buses, all late buses, no summer programs, no testing, no furniture, no maintenance, elimination of all assemblies, no gym floor, and a $93,000 reduction in supplies. That was what was alleged to be necessary, and that was a consequence from the Budget Committee. And so what, almost to a person, what the school board shared, and there's two words that come out, almost everybody, not everyone, but almost everyone, the two words that came out all the time were colossally irresponsible and totally outrageous. So, in my opinion, there's no doubt where, and this, what transpired at that deliberative session was not representative of Goffstown at all. It was, I didn't see that. And in my mind, where it came from was the school board. And I was just surprised that they felt that the efforts from us, and myself being here several years and going through all this, and night after night, line after line, to hear totally outrageous and colossally irresponsible, almost to a person. I just found that to be not representative of my experience with this group. So there is that, maybe we've got to agree to disagree or something, but there's a divergence of opinion, and I don't think it's constructive at all. So that was a disappointment on my part, experiencing that.
I've got Bill, and we've got Scott, and Dick wants to say something after, so.
Okay. I didn't get everything out that I wanted to. I should use notes, but in comparing how we operated with the town and how we operated with the school, to me, is a day and night difference. We had differences of opinion with the Board of Selectmen and various department heads. We worked through it. When I work with any of the town department heads, I can call them up, talk to them, drop in and visit them, exchange some information over a matter of a couple of minutes, and make incredibly informed decisions. Unless it's at a budget meeting, the only way that I have been able to this year, and I think it extended back into last year, was send an email to a blind email address at the school district. If I don't word the question right, it doesn't get answered, or it takes some time. It takes an awful lot of effort to get any kind of answer, and the comparison is extremely divergent. I mean, it is night and day difference. This is how it has deteriorated over my 4-year tenure. Now, in that same 4 years, the relationship with the town has not deteriorated. You answer the question. Who is the person that is causing this? Who is the body that's causing this? Is the Budget Committee so schizophrenic that one governing board can work with us and one cannot? I think not. I don't think it's the Budget Committee. We have narrowed it down to get information out of that school. As far as I'm concerned, it's like trying to suck a brick through a straw.
I've got
A big
Scott,
straw or a
I've got
Yeah.
Dick, and then Mr. Dillon.
a square straw?
Scott?
I'll pass.
Dick?
I'll just say, that one of the problems this year I saw with the school side was the fact that Sue was here and then she became sick and she didn't come for a couple of meetings or so, and there were meetings that somebody from the school board wasn't here. And I think there was questions asked that were gonna get answers back, and because of that, it kinda fell by the wayside. And I think that, when Keith came in to take over, he really was coming into it blindfolded somewhat to a degree as far as what was going on, you know, so that didn't help matters at all. That was some of the problem. But later on, he was here, and I don't know, there was questions and there was no answers I ever heard, a lot of questions that were asked during the budgeting process.
John?
Thanks. As a new member, here, a couple random thoughts. So my first year here, it's been a pleasure to serve with you guys, and ladies. In some sense, in partly in response to what's been said, I was sort of amazed how much info we actually requested from the town side and the school side. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, and some people who criticize the committee for not having done their homework or not having deliberated enough. I think it's easy to forget how much we asked, both in session and through emails to governing bodies, and actually how much we got back. I was, you know, and I don't think we give credit often enough to both governing bodies for the amount of information they gave us through their presentations, through their PowerPoints, through, you know, and Scott, I think you even said it, you've never seen so many Excel sheets in your life, and, you know, that was partly my experience this year, that, you know, we had just reams and reams of info. And so, you know, we didn't always get everything we wanted or right away, but I guess I'd say I thought that was a healthy part of the process. How much we were able to ask, how it was received, and you know, there definitely was sometimes we wanted info and we hadn't gotten it as soon as I would have liked. But by and large, I would still say we got an incredible amount of information, and I think it's an accomplishment this year from my own observation how public we made that. I mean, and kudos to Guy, I've said it before, by putting it on the website, you know, trying to demystify this somewhat for folks who can't come, who don't have access to everything we do. And so I thought that also was super healthy, so that any citizen, for or against or in the middle, could look at the actual data. And I hope that continues. And, you know, in terms of whether this was a more bitter year, I would just say, you know, there's a context. The economy is pretty bad. It's not as bad as it was a little while ago, but I think that's partly the context. And it seems to me there's some fundamental disagreements about how bad the economy is, how bad, whether it's picking up, whether it's going to get worse. And I think people on the committee tended to think that being not so optimistic about the current economy and where it's headed and trying to look out for taxpayers. To me, that somewhat got lost or gets lost. But the last thing, you know, there's other things, but not to go on forever, the role of the committee, I think was said a number of times that one main thing we're supposed to do is try to gauge the ability of taxpayers to what they can afford. And it seems to me, and I want to know what you guys think, because there's many times I've wondered, are we really even doing that? Do we look enough at Goffstown economics? I mean, how you know, and that might speak to addressing more information or getting more information on foreclosures and liens and distressed or people asking for waivers and whatnot. I would like to see, you know, and I'd like to know your guys' thoughts on that, but it just seems to me it's only half of the picture to be listening to town departments and the school board saying what they would like, and for us to be passing some judgment on what we think people can really afford. Well, what's our basis for knowing what the town in general can afford? I think largely it's anecdotal, which is not invaluable, and you can't, but you know, it's really hard to quantify and present those anecdotes. So I'd like to know you guys' thoughts on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I've got Guy, and then we'll go to Dick and back over to Paul. One of the things that I can comment on what you said, John, we did get a lot of information in our Excel spreadsheets, and I have to say I'm extremely pleased they were in an Excel spreadsheet, because we're able to do manipulation, analysis, more so than 8 years ago. Well, it was a little over 8 years ago. First meeting I was able to attend, and we were handing out paperwork, and the question I said is, can I get that electronically? And we have come so far, and by the way, it wasn't available electronically. This year, I think someone's asked, and I believe I remember, can I get that on paper? So we are a very green committee, okay? Because we have saved and be able to help with the budget by not producing reams of paper, at least from the town side. We may have done that on our own, and so thus contributing and to even more of our volunteer time by producing some of that information, so. Guy wants to say something, Dick wanted to say something, was there, and Paul, right? And back to Scott. Go ahead, Guy.
Thanks. In the last 3 months of '08, before I was on this committee, I came to a couple of, well, actually, I came to a number of budget committee meetings, and I watched the rest. And it was a totally different process than what happened this year. I remember a meeting, for those of you who were here at that time, where there were, I'm gonna guess, 15 motions, maybe 20, some to amend motions that were made, and amendment, and we're not talking about reducing line X or line B or MS form line section. It was, I make a motion to add 900,000 back to the budget. I make a motion to cut 500,000. I make a motion to put back 300. It was a ridiculous process. Enough so that it prompted me to run. So what happens the following year? '09. Now we decide we're gonna do our budgets by MS7 and MS27 categories, okay? Where did that get us? The committee comes under, again, incredible criticism. You didn't look at the lines. Where are you making these reductions? You make a reduction to an MS7 or an MS27 category, but we don't know where it goes. So what did we do this year? We went through 2,000 school lines. We went through, I don't know how many there are in the town. We were specific on the lines that we wanted to make adjustments to, up or down, and we made some adjustments upward to both. Didn't matter. Made absolutely no difference. They're bottom line budgets, okay? My conclusion is this, and my recommendation to any future budget committees is don't waste your time going through this thing line by line. It's not gonna make any difference. We saw it on the school side this year, where the counter argument to the budget that we came up with was, yes, if we have this amount of money, we're gonna spend it here. It doesn't matter what the budget committee did. And you know what my conclusion is? We're too damn big to be an SB2 town. This SB2 thing, where you've got your town meeting broken up into a deliberative
I
session.
think we just morphed just a little bit, Guy. But,
Pardon me?
Keep going, he's interesting.
yeah, but we're politicizing.
Oh, I didn't mean to politicize. I guess I'm just,
It wasn't on the budget, it was more of a, okay, good.
I would guess I was just looking back at I see what you're saying, I'm politicizing. That's not what I intended to do.
Well, one of the reasons was on the ballot, or there was a motion or a movement on the ballot about 3-4 years ago to get rid of the SB2 and bring back
Right.
another form of government, and
Right.
that's why I'm thinking that, because if you're
Okay, yeah, you're right.
just
you're right.
gonna end up into that, it's like trying to convince people, and
Yeah,
I'm not
you're
sure
right.
if it's the forum, but what you could talk about is what would a budget committee look like in that form of government, and how that would affect the process. That would be contained within.
All right, well, I'm not gonna tie everybody up with speculating on how the budget committee would operate under that. I guess I just see that, to me, it's, I've heard some calls recently that, well, we don't need a budget committee in the first place. The whole point of the budget committee is to be a check or a balance between the governing bodies that are spending the money of the people who give them the money, okay? And if you don't have that there, then it's a free-for-all. On the other hand, if the budget committee, if the work they do can be undone by the form of government we have, then why do we have a budget committee? And by that, I mean, I'm not gonna get into the SB2 and all that, but, you know, the days of sitting around in somebody's barn when you get 30 people, and they go all in favor, say aye, is one thing. But what resulted this year is that we're so big that all the work we did, well, a small group of people make decisions at these deliberatives that affect 12,000 registered voters. I don't necessarily know how the Budget Committee in the future can operate effectively with that, under those guidelines, under those auspices. We did a lot of work. I think we came up with fair budget proposals. I think the Board of Selectmen did an outstanding job in working with us on it. The school board, this is the first year I can remember that they did not compromise whatsoever. We were, you know, Mr. Lockwood made a point at the deliberative session of saying how disappointed he was in the Budget Committee and the school board for not compromising. If I'm not mistaken, I think we put nearly $1 million back into the budget we had in December.
Right.
Not so much because the teachers union came to public hearing and chastised us, but a lot of the reason is that after we had that budget in December, the revenue projections changed, the tax valuation changed. The number we needed to attain to get to a level tax rate changed. So this committee changed and threw 900 and whatever it was back into the budget. The Board of Selectmen saw what this committee was trying to do. In fact, I think Scott's the one who asked point blank, what are we after? We said a level tax rate. And the Board of Selectmen saw what we were trying to do. They took those revenue changes into account, which helped offset some of the reductions we had made. And then they rolled other things they wanted out into special article and let the voters decide. I thought that was terrific. I wish I had seen the same level of, or spirit of cooperation on the school side. But I guess I'm done.
I have Paul, I believe, then Scott,
Wasn't it Dick
and then
first?
Dick. Paul?
Oh, okay. I just wanted to respond briefly to something that John had mentioned.
Oh, yeah, you're after Dick, sorry. It's Paul, Scott, Dick, Christie. And I'm doing this all in my head, I'm not marking it down, so keep me in line.
About what's our basis for determining what the town can afford or is willing to pay. It's a good question, and it's one that I've thought about quite a bit, particularly because so many people on both sides of the debate seem to speak as though, sometimes explicitly, that they know what most of the town really thinks. And I do think that most of the time it is anecdotal, and really what they're referring to is their own group of like-minded friends. So it's hard to assess, and that's not to say that we should make all our decisions based on polling, if polling existed, but it is relevant information, and it's hard to come by. But one thing that I think you can look at is prior voting records for the town, and last year the town had a choice between two budgets that were apart by about $1 million, and by 60% they chose the lower of the budget options. So I think that sends a message, and I think it lends at least some credence to the argument that the group that showed up at deliberative this year and at public hearing this year isn't necessarily representative of that group of people who voted last year, unless something changed dramatically in that short period of time.
Scott, Dick, Christie.
I do take a look at where, try to take that pulse. I mean, if we knew that answer, we would have only maybe one meeting for the budget committee. It'd be great. But we don't, and it's interesting is that I would agree, last year you saw that percentage, but then if you look back, maybe during slightly better economic times, there were times when the voters were willing to spend $800,000 more than the default budget, and they passed it by a 60-40, or a 55-45. So you just never know. It's always a moving target. I think it's safe to say that the economic conditions, as John mentioned, put everybody in a spot where be playing it more conservative. But my impression of this year, it was a bit frustrating in the sense that as a selectman, I think we spend way too much time on budgets. And I'm not trying to go down the political road like Guy did, but something's gotta give. I mean, I don't want to have department heads and principals and superintendents spending 5 months out of a year arguing about a budget. I want them making sure that our kids are getting proper educations, their departments are being run well, they're trying to come up with new ideas to bring businesses in, and selectmen, like-minded selectmen and other folks are working on that. So to me, if I had known that we needed to get to a level-funded tax rate, we could have had 2 meetings, really. Now, on the school side, and we're a little different. We can say, you know what, when we took $500,000 of a road plan off the table, okay? On the school side, it's more personnel driven. Let's face it, they don't have that. So I could see more of a resistance in that. But what I would have liked to have seen was the budget committee came up with the number that you came up with, and the school board, although I don't agree with what they did, I think they should have compromised more. And if they did, maybe there wouldn't have been all that bitterness. There might have been a respectful disagreement that you might have been $600,000 apart, and everybody can vote their conscience, but nobody would have been ticked off at each other. That being said, we just spend way too much, time on this. So if we, and the other thing too is, I don't necessarily, in poor economic conditions, a level-funded tax rate, I think, is a noble goal. But that cannot be an expectation that we're gonna be able to keep it level all the time. If costs are going up, and we have to say, okay, we have to, is it a modest tax increase, and then say, we have to pass along a $50 average house tax, and that's our goal, whatever that is. But if that becomes the target, if we say to if this budget committee says, our goal is either a level funded tax rate or a modest tax increase, and there's a certain range there, and everyone's working to that'll save half the time. And then the budget committee prepares that budget, the board of selectmen, the school board prepare their budget, and let the chips fall where they may, and say, this is where we respectfully think it needs to be, the number, and this is where they do. And if we can't come to a meeting of the minds, fantastic, but that doesn't mean that anyone is evil. It just means that this is what we think is the right way to go, and you can choose this, or you can choose to pay $100 more in your tax bill, or $200 more in your tax bill, and they have to explain to you why that's necessary. But for us, we think it's either level or a modest increase. And I think we spend way too much time, and I will concur. And I tried this year to put something on our ballot to go to more of a town manager form of government. It didn't pass. I mean, it was only 2 selectmen who just ultimately decided to go that route. But we have to start rethinking how we operate this community. It's too big to do all this. It simply is. Sorry, but just think it is.
We're going all the way around. One of the things before I call Dick and then Christie and Ivan in is there are 2 sides of the equation on doing the budget. One is the appropriation side, one is the estimated revenue side. And the current law says that the budget committee brings forth the appropriation side, but not about the revenue side. And you can tell that the revenues, in order to get to that particular thought process, then the budget committee would have to get voluntary cooperation from the governing boards to say, okay, how are you calculating your revenues, and then the budget, which we actually, in the law, it does say that we're supposed to be looking at revenue, so we could do that. It would be a change, and it's kind of exciting to think about it that way and say, okay, let's narrow down, let's take a look at how you are developing your revenue stream. And if we did that and then looked at the appropriation came with a tax rate, we could actually make a decision at the macro level and just go backwards. Say, okay, this is what you've got, tell me what department you're gonna do it in. It's an interesting thing to think about.
Can I interject for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just think that would streamline things a heck of a lot more.
Sure.
Because if you know that, if that is the goal, is to keep things, constant, or if there's a recognition that maybe we need to bump it a modest amount of money, then that becomes, that's the number. And how you decide that you're gonna go and dole it out, that's your problem. But, and then it might alleviate all these spreadsheets and, because at the end of the day.
No,
No, I'm saying at the end of,
We like
Oh, no,
spreadsheets.
we
just saying
like
that at the-
spreadsheets.
At the end of the day, I know that you went, you know, the committee went through that whole exercise of where this committee thought it would be appropriate for where cuts should take place, et cetera. And there was a disagreement, sometimes heated, sometimes respectful, as to either you're crazy or I agree. And the board, our board went through that, and we agreed and we disagreed on others. But at the end of the day, it's the Board of Selectmen who has that number, who has to allocate where the monies go. So, it just might be an easier way of trying to do this, where, you know, this is where this is our target from early on, and then, remember what I said at one of these meetings? It was one of these meetings I said, I think we're only like $1 million something apart. Let's just have the discussion and the debate on that difference. There's no sense in having the debate on the stuff that we're not debating, we don't need to debate on.
I've got Dick, Christie, and Ivan. Dick?
First of all, I think that everything's crammed up at the end of the year. That's one of the problems. And one of the big things is what is the revenues gonna be? That's got a lot to do with that budget, you know? I mean, the other thing is that, as I sit here and I think about it from years gone by, every single year. And you know what? The budget's always gone up. It never went down. It always went up.
Budget's always gone.
And if there was one year, and I don't know if there's ever really been one year where it actually was zero, it stayed there, Now, that sounds terrible. But, somewhere in life you have to say, oh, what about this year? Maybe this is the year to keep it zero. And I say that because I know so many people that just got a bill for 140 gallons of oil that was $546. And I used to deliver oil for 19 cents a gallon. That's things are happening in this world that's really putting some pressure on people. And then a lot of them people aren't going to town meetings, voting down things. They got their days all used up in going to work and getting there and getting back. When they drive up to the gas pump, where's the next dollar coming from? That's their worry. The real people out there are struggling. We know that. I know that. I've seen them. I've heard about it. And I always thought that I retired and I would make it, and I will, I guess. But it's not easy anymore. It isn't. And I know a lot of old people sitting in their house right now, freezing to death, wrapped up in a blanket, trying to save money by not putting a thermostat up. Do we all know that? No. It's going on out there. It's a real world that we're living in.
I knew that.
Christie?
I forgot. To Guy's point, I think I like the process. I think it's a great checks and balances. I think, this year might have seen that there wasn't any compromise, but we did come up with a compromise budget. And the previous 2 years before that, we reached a compromise budget that we came to an agreement upon. So this year, it might not have been exactly what you wanted, but, that's something learned for next year. And I think with all the downshifting coming, that will be a big part of your budgets that go forward next year. And maybe it'll swing back the other way.
Ivan?
Yeah, a couple observations. One is, it kind of looks like, in my experience, the Budget Committee kind of drifted a little bit from one side to the other side, and then maybe started to find its role, and defined it better. And I think what was written at some point that I thought narrowed it down and focused it and made it reasonably clear, and maybe it addresses something Scott said, It is not the role of the Budget Committee to be the governing body. It is up to the governing bodies to determine how they will affect a level of budget. It is the role of the Budget Committee to set the level of available funding that will go before the citizens who pay the bill at the deliberative session. Once the voters have approved the budgetary level, it is then the governing bodies who make the decision, the bottom line budget. And I think that, for me, that clarifies it. And Dick, you talked about what a lot of people would call inflation coming down the road. But another thing that really disturbed me, and I know our state representatives are looking at this and talking about this, and last week I came in possession of this state aid to municipalities, history and trends from the New Hampshire Municipal Association, which is connected with the local government center. And I was pretty surprised because on page 7, they've got some really accurate data from the New Hampshire retirement system, which was surprising. And we, for instance, the state of New Hampshire has about 25,000 retired people, and there's another 50,000 coming down the pike. So there's a total of about 77,000 people who are going to retire on a pension, quote unquote. And from somebody from the private sector, it's like a two-tier system. It's like, yeah, we talked about that 30 years ago in private industry. I mean, what is this? And then you look at some of the numbers, and for instance, the average pension for fiscal year 2010, the retirees, for just general state employees, about 18 grand. Teachers, it's 30,000 a year. So for teachers retiring last year, the average pension is 29,800. For police, it's 49,000. For fire, it's 60,000. That's the average retirement for police and fire at age possibly 45 with 20 years. Plenty of time to go get another one. Those seem awfully close to the base pay.
They don't get Social Security, by the
I
way.
understand.
Just-
Absolutely understand.
Don't need it.
I don't need.
No, I'm saying that the teacher would get Social Security on top of or the other government employee.
But the point I want to mention is, because the second part in this article is that New Hampshire rates very well in many quality of life measures and metrics, but one of them that New Hampshire does not measure well in at all is funding a pension plan. We're rated about 14th in the nation for underfunding. So, for instance, a perfect number would
help me tie that into the budget, what we're talking about, the budget process. I'm missing it.
These numbers are going to be downshifted to the towns in all probability. The underfunding, we're going to have to, the state is going to downshift the 3.9 billion underfunding.
I think John's gonna tell you a little bit what's happened with the governor's budget presentation.
Yeah.
And with some bills that are currently floating through, where I believe the governor is not funding the current 25% level, but there's been some recognition that the employer, and so you're gonna hear something.
So to wrap up, all I'm saying is that a concern should be not only inflation, but the fact that we're going to have to deal with some underfunding, some costs that might be downshifted, and that's going to affect our budgets, and that's my point.
You had your hand up after John or before John?
I think I was after.
Okay, I think so.
You can go ahead, Paul.
Okay, no, go ahead, John. I'm gonna do it in order. John, then Paul.
Okay.
Because I think it's relevant to what Ivan just said.
Okay. The fact of, I just want to, and I really want to touch on the fact of downshifting. We've been working pretty much this week, hearing the governor, speaking with him and leadership in the House. And our goal, our Republican leadership majority goal this year and next year is not to push any of these costs to the local towns or downshift. We are working very hard to reduce, the governor came out with his proposed budget, and we are in line with that, and he's taking some of our advice now, as to, where some very serious cuts are gonna be made, and there are positions that aren't gonna get filled, there are employees that are gonna lose their job on the state level. There's funding for the universities. He's put a moratorium on hospitals, so a lot of money that's gonna be coming from the state that is supposed to be, downshifted to the communities. We are doing everything, so, you're not gonna be getting more revenue from the state, but you won't be getting any additional downshifting or additional costs. And we're working very hard to prevent that, so, if all being said, if everything stayed the same as they were under the last 4 years, yes, we'd see a tremendous amount of downshifting. We are doing everything possible not to cause that problem, for the towns, for this biennium, yes.
Paul?
I just wanted to touch briefly on 3 topics. The first is the general role of the, and I think I agree primarily with what Scott has been saying, that I would make an analogy to like a CFO of a company. The CFO doesn't tell departments how many pencils to buy, and it doesn't have arguments at that level. And I think that to some extent we get a bit lost in that this year. And I know that you can always make the argument that, you know, a department has the right to make an appeal for extra special consideration, and they ought to include details in that appeal. But I don't think it's necessarily our role to delve that deeply on our own accord. So that was the first thing. The other thing was back to the trending of voting over the past years. I actually have looked up a bit of that, and back to 2003, in 2 scenarios. The first scenario is when the proposed budget, both either on the school or the town side, when the proposed budget is higher than the default, the town has always approved, apparently, the proposed budget since 2003, never voted one down. But when the proposed budget was higher than the default, they approved it by an average margin of 54%. When the proposed budget was lower than the default, they approved it by an average margin of 76%. So it seems like, in general, the town has what I characterize as a healthy kind of deference to what they consider to be experts. They'd like to be able to grant the budget that is proposed. But when it's higher, they grudgingly agree. And when it's lower, they obviously or overwhelmingly think that that's a good idea. So that seems to be the character of the town as for what you can get out of voting anyway. And then the last thing was the SB2 deliberative mechanism, which, since we're all talking about it, I think it's deeply flawed particularly in its inability to scale. And I think that you just need to ask one question, which is, who is more likely to show up for a 4-hour meeting on a Saturday to deal with the school budget? Someone who's directly connected to the school, or someone who has no connection to the school, as is the case with the majority of the town? So I think it's inherently structured in such a way, not deliberately, but such a way as to be non-representative. So that's my opinion on that.
Did I have anyone after Paul?
Last year they didn't
Scott?
vote.
Yeah, thanks. I was gonna say, that was my only point, is that the year prior, it is the process, Paul, whether we like it or not, and the year prior, there were enough of those people, it got voted down by 6 votes. The
Yep.
school's budget got voted down by 6 votes, so there were enough people
I
at
was
that
there.
time.
I understand that's an anomaly, though.
Yeah, well, yay and nay, and it's just, it's like, I wish I knew what that sweet spot that 80% of the people would love to have, and you just don't know, but I think that the process is what the process
We know
is.
76%.
What? Yeah, so,
That's their obligation to get out there and come, you know? That's,
They'll do it at the ballot.
Yeah,
Okay.
Last year
You
was
know-
13.3% at the ballot.
Yeah,
That's
it's crazy.
terrible.
More people vote in these primaries, you know, or
Yeah, the off years.
than they do.
You can think
80%.
about that. The deliberative session is the primary and because it's the ballot determination. And then March 8th, which is one of my announcements, Guy said like that, and then John wanted a little, so we'll do Guy. You're up.
Okay, I'm just gonna make this real quick. I wanna reiterate, or support what Paul said in support of Scott. I agree, the last thing school principals and department heads should be doing is wasting all this time putting budgets together. The other thing I wanted to say is that I think it's important for the public to understand one of the key responsibilities of this committee is to be, I don't know if nonpartisan is the right word. We're here to represent the best interests of the taxpayers, not either of the governing bodies. We are supposed to be the buffer. Today, I got a phone call from the union leader. In the course of a conversation with one of these guys, he quoted an elected member of this community as saying, the budget committee in the last 2 years has been hijacked by fiscal conservatives. I wrote this down, okay? And he said, how do you respond to that? And the first thing I said is, there is no committee or board in this town that's been hijacked by anyone. We've been put here by the voters. The statement made no sense, okay? And I'm presuming that the voters put me in this chair because they wanted they wanted someone who thought like me on this committee. If they don't, they're gonna vote me out. And it's the same with the school board and the planning board and the selectmen and the ZBA and anybody else who's elected in this town are put there by people because they agree with your point of view and your philosophy. They want you representing them. And that's what we've done. And I'm proud of the work that we've done. And like I said at the beginning of this meeting, 50% of the people are gonna be thrilled with what we do and 50% won't. And if that balance changes, so is the makeup of this committee and every other in town. But there is no such thing as hijacking any board or committee. And that's a ridiculous statement I heard. I couldn't believe it. That's it. Done for the year. Well, till the next new committee.
Political year.
The political year.
Well, that sounds like the liberal media attacking any conservative because they know that that's what sells newspapers for them. You should see or hear some of the phone calls that I get asking me those kind of questions from the Concord Monitor and the Dover Democrat and the Union Leader and the Nashua Telegraph. They want to, that's just the way they are. They're making sensationalism so they can sell newspapers because they know the people that are going to fall into that trap are going to buy 2 magazines, one to collect and one to read. But going back to something that Scott said, I just want to about the budget. I would like to. I would wonder if it's possible to quantify the amount of money. We got great talent, Chief Sullivan, Chief O'Brien, Kyle Querum, Sue DeRosso. I mean, we have great talent running these departments, and they spend, I would like to know what it costs us for them to sit in front of us and present budgets and go through that whole budget process.
Yeah.
I mean, their talents are probably being wasted on what they really know best is running their department and being what they are, rather than spending all this time and tax money just spending all their efforts. I mean, not who's running the department, but they should be running the department. They have the great expertise to do that, and that's what they were hired to do. But they end up spending all their time looking for more money to fund it, and that shouldn't be their primary goal. But it sure looks like it from the budget committee's perspective, or from my perspective. They spend a great amount of time doing that, and I applaud them for it. But it just, I think that time should be spent, and I also think that the idea of a town manager was the wrong form of government. I think it should be an elected position that runs the town, but that's my opinion, and I don't wanna,
You can't talk about that.
but not to get political.
Mayor Goldie Wilson.
That, you just did.
But not to get political,
One-
but I think that being said, seeing the cat's out of the bag,
Oh, no, the cat's not out of the bag.
the cat's not out of the bag.
Cat's not out
And
of the
stuffed
bag.
it back in.
Put the cat back in.
Push that cat back in.
Okay, so but the town manager, I think, is, anyway, that was the wrong type of form of government that a town of 18,000 probably deserves. I don't know if you know Waterville, Maine, it's like a little city, and it is, it's a city.
We're getting there. There are
But-
things that
but-
people are
but going
saying
back to the
outside
budget.
that is
But go-
ruffling up other people who wanna talk, so,
Yeah, you're not talking about a board of mayor and all, are you?
I'm,
okay, go
Okay.
ahead.
no, that's
go ahead,
political.
go ahead.
I
Right
would
after,
not
right
talk
after
of
we
a
adjourn.
mayor and a board of aldermen.
Are you running, John?
I'm more no, I'm definitely not
Oh, no,
running.
see, there we go
I'm
again.
thinking somebody
Okay.
else would be a
Goldie
great
Wilson.
first mayor of the town.
Conclusion on your thought on the budget?
Conclusion on my thought of the budget, support the budget committee's recommended budget on the ballot on March 8th. Testing.
Okay, I'm sorry, you hit a
I
tickle
just wanna
spot.
bring
That
it
was-
back to the budget.
I've seen that on the House floor many times, so, very good. I've got Dick and John Murray. Go ahead, Dick.
I just got one thing I wanna say, and I heard it, Scott said it, and I firmly believe it, that we should say to everybody, come next September, we're looking for no more than 2%, 3%, 5% increase in the budget, and stick with it. When we said 10% reductions, it threw everything out, it threw everything off, it seems to me that's what happened. But I only say that because I've sat here when they did that for a number of years, and they said, we're looking at no more than 5%. And that's what was happening.
I think it's, before I get to you, John, one of the big takeaways I'm taking from tonight's discussion was probably a shift in thought process that seems to make sense, that says, okay, if in the economy, the way it is, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, and it's hard to go through all the work we went through to come up and say, this is what we think, because people have, it's come both ways. People have said, well, you gotta tell me what line you're cutting. And then we have the return saying, well, you can't cut those lines, you have to do a different line. And this is what we're gonna think of doing. And that really cut to the chase, saying, back 4 or 5 years ago, when the bottom line was just cut and said, that's it, go for it, we were criticized. When we look at the detail, we're criticized. I mean, you're not gonna win. So what you have to do, from your own perspective and basis, is say, what do you feel is your mitigation here? Because, as Ivan read that, that is exactly what we do. We are supposed to be from the piece of what can be afforded, and coming with something that says this is the basis for what we're saying, or coming with something that says, start with estimated revenue, get a good handle on what it is from our perspective, not just take numbers, and say, this is it. Maybe it's a tax rate, maybe it's a % hike, whatever for the revenue, but I think it has a lot. That might be a good dynamic shift to start talking about in September. Right on. Mr. Burt?
I just got a few things I wanted to touch base. One is for Guy, with his frustration of, the process. With 180 new reps up there in Concord, and I am one of them, help is on the way. I've seen a lot of legislation that's gonna help this situation. And I am working on one, and I'll reveal that at some point. But then also, not too many people on this committee, and ever since we're all cleansing ourselves, I'll throw this out. Not too many people on this committee agreed with my cuts. But I definitely agree with what Dick said, when he said, a lot of you don't realize how many people are suffering out there. I've always known that, and that's why I made those attempted cuts, which did not pass. And then with the statement of everybody has to get along, on the 50-50, 50% people hate you and 50% love you, I'll disagree with that a little bit. because according to my voting record, 60% or 65% liked me. And I was pretty vocal on how conservative I was, and that's how many votes I got, the percentage-wise. Because if you only get 50, I don't think you win. I think you have to get more than that. This is a big one that I hear a lot, and I always have disagreed with it, and I think it was Christie was saying, like-minded people, and most of my friends are like-minded like I am, is the getting along.
I didn't say that.
Oh, okay.
said that.
Oh, I'm sorry, Paul, you said it.
Easy to make that mistake.
It's the getting along. I think we have to be polite and courtesy and cordial to each other, but if we get along with the school board and the budget committee, this is what my feeling is, and we get along with the selectmen, I think the taxpayers are in big trouble. I think we need to be very polite, but I think we need to be here and they need to be here, and then we have to meet somewheres. If we all jump into the Christie's beautiful in-ground pool there, start swimming around together, I think the taxpayers are in big trouble.
I'm sorry.
I really do think that.
Visual guy?
Well, hopefully we're all invited this summer. I don't know if you guys seen what's going on down in New Jersey and Wisconsin, especially Wisconsin, and Egypt. That's coming here.
Yep.
We can't stop it. Eventually it will be in New Hampshire. Wisconsin, the governor is threatening to send the National Guard out to pick up some of the senators right now. And I heard they're on a bus
They are.
heading to Iowa, I think it is, or Ohio, trying to get the heck out of Dodge. It's coming. So you really gotta look at the news when you see this. It's pretty incredible. I'm just having really enjoying watching it. And I do want to touch base on Lynch's budget a little. I got a great seat up there. I mean, I'm almost dead center. I mean, it's just a perfect seat. So I'm sitting there watching them and listening. And several years ago, they paid 40% of the retirement. A couple years ago, it went down to 35%, and the state paid 30%. And this year, they're paying 25%. Lynch's proposed budget for 2012 and 2013 is zero. You know how much money that's going to be? It's huge. If his budget passed, the number is zero to the retirement. So I want everybody to know that. The other is a huge, and I do mean it's a huge cut, millions, in school building aid in his proposed budget. And from what I understand is that we get so much, I'm assuming for the kindergarten. Oh, we don't get nothing for that?
High did.
High
It's done.
school, no, it's just the high school.
Oh, it is the high school, okay.
Yeah, they just retired the Mountain View and.
Oh, okay.
And other ones, it's just the high school now, and it's about $900,000.
Well, there's gonna be cuts in that.
Yeah.
There's
For
big,
new, John, for new projects or for existing?
I heard,
Right, they can't modify the existing.
You
So this
sure?
is for- yeah,
okay,
just
then
for
for
Read
new
it.
buildings,
I thought
there's,
it was for new,
okay.
I thought it was,
Yeah.
had to do
All
with
right.
the new funding.
well, I don't wanna make a
They don't
comment
have
on
the
it then,
money,
because
they
I'm not
can do
100,
anything.
Yeah, I do
100%
know
sure.
about the 25% was at zero, but John also said that they're working hard, that was something that the House
That's not gonna
was not going to look, they're gonna look at something different.
yes,
So
we are
it
looking at
could
something
be anywhere
different.
from between the two numbers.
Yes. Now, there are some good things that Governor Lynch proposed. One is consolidating some departments. It's gonna save, I think one number, if I remember right, was $45 million by consolidating some departments, which is big. Reducing some overstaffed departments. I believe the number is 264 employees are gonna get the pink.
255.
Oh, it's 255,
Filled,
okay.
that are currently filled, but there are
Yes.
significant other positions that are
There
being
is.
defunded.
Yes, well, they're gonna eliminate some vacant spots.
Right, that's defunded and eliminated the positions themselves.
And one day when I was sitting in the
But that-
house,
That doesn't directly affect Goffstown's budget.
well,
Indirectly affects your pocketbook as individuals.
yes,
And potentially what you're paying for here and there, but
Well, there is, and lastly, Representative Kirk up in Ware,
who actually represents Goffstown as well.
yes, yeah, he got up and spoke on downshifting. And he really explained it so everybody could understand it. And what downshifting is the last 4 years, the Democrats were in control and they cut a lot of programs and a lot of other services. That is considered downshifting. The way Representative Kirk, and I agree with this statement, if the Republicans continue that, it's not downshifting because the promise was never there, it's already been gone. So that's what people need to understand, that we're probably going to, in order to get a balanced budget, keep a lot of the cuts what the Democrats did, but that's not considered downshifting. So when you hear the word downshifting, what downshifting is if I promise you something and then I take it away, that first year, that's downshifting. The second year, there's no promise, there's no downshifting. And there's gonna be quite a bit of that going on.
Continuation of the loss that we've already seen.
Yes.
It's not gonna come back.
Yes, that's right, yeah. But the biggest one was the retirement from 25% down to 0, which is gonna be huge. So I just, so what I'm thinking is, we need to keep that in mind as we enter this new coming year.
And that, if that does come to pass, that will
Yeah.
probably become effective July 1, which means 6 months of the current year budget, which is the one that's going to the poll on March 8th.
Yes.
Will be under appropriated.
Yeah.
Estimated under appropriated for what reality might be, and then the governing boards would have to deal with that.
Well, and one last thing, as Representative Heichel said one time was, we're privy to information that is coming out in the future, and this was some of it. We thought some of this was coming. And that's why I made a lot of the cuts that I made, that, unfortunately didn't go through. But I do thank the Budget Committee, and we're here. Thank you.
I was almost ready to segue.
Thank you, John.
Good, Scott.
I was just gonna say, it's so, it's really, it's ugly to see how the sausage gets made in Concord, but, one of the things that I'm reassured that, our reps are really working hard to not shift, more of the cost to the municipalities. So I
Yeah.
appreciate your efforts in that regard. I know that Local Government Center, New Hampshire Municipal Association, aggressively fighting any type of downshifting, because for most of municipalities, their budgets are set. They are going to March and April sessions to vote on them. But I think it's all part of the process where the governor is gonna stake out his part, and then the House and the Senate they'll stake out their portions, and eventually they'll agree to something. So it's just gonna be, I think one of the things that I'm somewhat pleased to hear from the two of you is that I think it's one thing, just give us the baseline, if it's whatever we got this year, and I know even though you may have promised increases, that's I can live with that as a local official. But when you say that you're gonna go from 25 to 0, I can't live with that, and we budgeted 25% for our retirement. And we're looking at what impact that will have,
Right, I need to correct it. We're not gonna be under appropriated. We're gonna be overestimated in
Estimated.
revenue.
Right.
That not under appropriated. So the appropriation will be okay. It's the tax rate that would be artificially shown lower than what reality would happen to be, unless there was other non-appropriations that wouldn't be spent to take account for that, but.
So again, I just wanna, as best you can, keep us, not, what you guys are keep this Board of Selectmen, and School Board informed as to what's going on would be. And is there anybody from, is there one, I know I'm digressing, is there any one person from the delegation that acts as the liaison to the board, or will clue us in on stuff? we do get stuff from the municipal association, and with a certain lot, you know, we have, you know, we get that, but like Pam Manny did that, she used to send us emails periodically.
Okay.
Is there anybody that's?
We can take that up next Monday.
Okay.
But it's a good question, you can take it back. But as far as the budget committee goes, I do know in the governor's recommended budget that he proposed, there was a flat, if whatever for school funding.
Right, no
Not-
increases.
Not talking about the building, but whatever the school, completely flat.
Yeah.
For revenue. On the school side, on March 7th, the school side, I think I sent you an email and copied the town members that I guess there was gonna be a scheduled meeting for next Monday that is off the schedule, but the next meeting will be 3/7. Mr. Dillon or Mr. Bates or Ms. Getchell, Mr. Burt, and I'm kinda leaving Ivan off that list for now, cause he attended many of the school boards and he still has tons of notes that he can share with us.
I'm good for the next 3 years.
You're good, okay. Which one of you can make the 3/7 A&F meeting, most likely at 6:30, and then stay for the school board to listen up? Which one of you on the school side?
I could do it.
3/7?
Yeah, 3/7, March, yep.
Yep.
So 6:30
Yep, at the media center,
is that considered the library?
yes.
Double
believe.
Never thought that out. Like, oh, that's gonna take that.
Now, is there anybody else who has something? I've got some administrative announcements. Any that you need? John?
Well, since we spent a whole year doing it, I know I said it, and I was reading in the Goffstown News, the article that's written, read up on issues before March 8th, put out by, Inside the School Doors, put out by the Goffstown School District, recommending, you know, people support, read and study and know everything and make sure and in support
always a
of,
good thing.
of their budget.
Okay.
And seeing as the budget committee did come out with a different number, before we end this session tonight, maybe it would be, wise to, voice your opinion on, whether or not you still recommend the budget committee's budget, and recommend and ask the voters to support that also at the poll. Would that be a good?
It's a legitimate question, but I think it's already been asked and answered in that if voters who look at the ballot will see that there will be a number that was amended at the deliberative session that the budget committee now does not recommend. And that was a vote of, I believe, 10-1-1. So, and the one that voted against the not recommend was the school board representative, and the one who abstained was, of course, the selectmen's, because he was not given any direction by the board on how to vote on that. So all of the elected and other appointed members all voted unanimously, say, do not support the number that's on the ballot, but rather, the only alternative that the public has would be the default budget. So I think it's kind of been asked and answered, okay?
I appreciate that, and
So the administrative announcements would be sure, everyone, to get out on March 8th and vote on paper. Our next regular meeting will be 7 PM, March 15th, where hopefully we'll have there will be 5 positions that would have been voted on. And I think, Paul, you're the only current member who's rerunning. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I didn't wanna be rude, I just wanna thank, I have
Sure.
to go get my daughter.
Yep,
high school.
understand.
Be good,
Thank you.
everybody, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
All right.
Thanks for a good budget season, Scott.
Yeah, can't wait till the next one.
It's okay, we start next month on
he
March
sincere?
15th. All right, is there any other business you guys wanted to go through? I mean, I had on the agenda if you wanted to do town side, school side reports, village districts, but it's the last meeting of our political year. And that's why I thought it would be more important for us to spend, and I think we did, an hour and maybe 20 minutes, an hour and a half, going over some of the other thoughts, and there were some good takeaways.
The police department report is, we're waiting to see what happens on March 8th, and we're working on the 2012 CIP. So, that's pretty much it.
I emailed Chief O'Brien, he didn't email me back.
Anything else?
No news.
Motion to adjourn?
I will take that motion
I'll
by
second
Guy,
that.
and are you,
Second, are you taking thirds?
I heard
Bill
John
can-
D. first. All those in favor of adjourning, please signify by raising your hand. Mr. Burt, don't want to adjourn, or?
No,
how you
I
gonna
like
vote?
it here. All right.
Okay, that would be official, and we are at
I only
3,
present
6,
when I
9,
don't
10,
have anything
0, 0.
that I'm totally